Welcome to all the world's greatest Dynasty players. This is Dynasty 365. I'm your host, Chris Burns. You know, they say good things come in triples. And with our special guest, Justin Taylor, with us tonight, him, Jorge, and myself, we're going to make our panel like a triumvirate of fantasy football power hitters. So lock in because it's going to be a good show tonight. Tonight's episode is sponsored by the number 3. And we're going to talk about third-year players with insight to those guys drafted in the 2022 rookie draft. Jorge, can you do me a favor? Pretend like you're a third-round rookie pick and hit for us. Hit that music. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dynasty 365. I want to say big thanks for our guest filling in tonight. You can find him on Twitter at JT Orange. You can find his fantastic analysis on anything that you need. Hockey, IDP, Devy, C2C, Dynasty. He's got it all. You want to know about brew? He's got you. You want to make your brisket more tasty? He's got you on that too. He's got you covered on anything you can think of. JT, my friend, thank you for joining the show tonight. How are you?
That might be the greatest intro I've ever had. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm pumped to be here, man. Things are getting interesting. You know, we're getting closer and closer to football season. It's like every day. I just got done. My son's going into 5th grade. First tackle football season. We just had our coaches meeting. So it's getting real. We're there. We're almost there. It's almost July and getting these camps kicked off. And before you know it, season's going to be here.
You are right. Oh, you got to love that. It's almost time for 2-a-days. Man, I'm sweating just
That's
thinking
right.
about it.
I know. It's you and me both. I'm already like, I'm going to be out there dying. I'm going to have to break out the 80 sunscreen before I turn bright red and melt. So.
Jorge, boss man.
Yes, sir.
How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing well.
Congratulations, sir. Congratulations.
Boston Celtics NBA champions. You love to see it. Woo, woo. I'm doing well, man. I am scrambling for like any bit of like NFL news. Not so much because I want to tie it to fantasy football, although that would be great. But I just need news. I don't care what it is. It's like so-and-so had waffles for breakfast. Oh my God, that's awesome. What kind of batter did they use? And like, oh my God,
who did he have breakfast with is the more important question.
Well, exactly.
Right, Jorge?
Yeah, is Matt Stafford still having breakfast with Cooper Kupp, or is cooking to shut him out the door? I don't know. These are things I want to know because I'm so desperate and deprived of good NFL information.
Yeah, Puka changed the reservation, just so you know. Like, breaking news. You heard it here first, guys. No, I'm just playing. But everybody that's joining us, we appreciate it. Remember to drop your comments, your questions, or whatever you have into the chat, or you can tweet us. If you have trade questions, feel free to throw those in as well, and we will respond as we can. All right, so Jorge, you said you wanted to hear some news and notes. So we're going to start off the show just talking about some news and nuggets that have happened so far during the week. Leading off, we got Trevor Lawrence. He got paid. 5-year, $275 million deal, $142 million fully guaranteed, I believe, and a almost $38 million signing bonus. Jorge, does that make you feel good? What does that make you feel?
I feel like the guy got overpaid, but they're probably paying him close to his market value as he could get. I think at the end of the day, that's what all these players are going to get in their contracts, market value. I don't think that makes him one of the elite quarterbacks in fantasy football, whether it's in dynasty formats or for redraft formats. I'm kind of low on him regardless. But they were going to pay him. I didn't expect him to get paid $142 million guaranteed. That's a bit excessive. But again, it is what it is. What's up, Albert?
JT. Hey, good to see you, Albert. JT, what you think?
I'm higher on T-Law than Jorge is. I like T-Law still. I still think there's room to grow. As Jacksonville's situation has been a little bit of a mess, I think he was way more hurt last season than people are leading on. Just watching him play, he wasn't crisp. Throws were high. I've made this comparison before. He reminded me of one of those late Andrew Luck season Colts where you were like looking at him and you're like, there's just something not right. What is wrong with him? And it was just the rib injury, the shoulder injury. It was just like all these things that he was dealing with that everybody wasn't quite sure how bad it was. And you just saw it wasn't the same player. I think he has a big bounce back here. And I really, really hope he's going to breakfast every morning with Brian Thomas. I hope Brian Thomas is his breakfast buddy. I hope he throws at Brian Thomas all day, every day. I think the Jags are in for a little bit of a bounce back. I think T-Law's in for a bounce back. I think the Jags are going to be a little bit in trouble. I think that division is going to be so tough. But I'm excited because I think that division all of a sudden is going to become the shootout division. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of shootouts in the AFC South. And for fantasy purposes, you can't beat it. So I'm on the T-Law train. I think this is going to look like a decent contract in a couple years. It's high now, but I think a lot of these guys, it's going to just keep going up. I think it was a smart by the Jags. They're not getting anybody else. They're getting me better. If he doesn't ever make it to potential, he doesn't. But you got to lock him up. You just can't take that chance.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Rich, hey, you're a good-looking dude yourself. Get well soon, my friend. All right. What about T. Higgins? He signed his tender. So as of now, it seems like he's going to be playing in Cincy this year. JT, come back to you. What are your thoughts on Higgins signing that tender?
I felt like it was going to happen. It was just a matter of time. He had to prove a point. That's what he was doing. He was proving a point. He's not super happy with what's going on. I figured he would sign. I mean, too many guys have learned like sitting out is just a terrible idea. It just doesn't work in your favor most of the time. So, if you're T. Higgins, my thing is come out, ball out this year. And if you want a big contract for somebody else next year, then that's where you go. I still like T. Higgins. He's not one of my favorite guys in that tier. But I do like him all right. Somebody's going to end up paying him a lot of money, I think. So at this point, you just sign it this year, ball out this year, and then get absolutely paid by somebody next year. I mean, look what Calvin Ridley got. T. Higgins can get way more than that.
That's true. Jorge, move the needle for you at all?
It does for Joe Burrow in my Dynasty rankings, which you get an update there. As well as my redraft rankings. Hello, Mr. Scampers, while you're there in the chat. Good to see you again. I like it. Give Burrow more weapons. I think that elevates his quarterback floor. I still don't know. We saw a couple years ago that when both healthy, both Higgins and Jamar Chase still was a predominant target leader there. I don't know if this, causes him to. I don't know if this causes Higgins to, intrude or impinge those targets that are going Jamar Chase's way. But this screams to me more of a good move for the quarterback, maybe a lateral or no change at all for the wide receiver.
Okay. I agree with what both of you guys are saying right there. All right. And in news that almost broke Twitter for, 30 minutes, Brandon Ayuk, on TikTok, talking to Jaden Daniels on FaceTime and Jaden Daniels saying that the 49ers don't want him back. Fellas, should we be worried about this? Should we expect something, or what do we think? And Jorge, we'll come to you first.
Are you kidding me? I'm hoping that there's a trade of ridiculous proportion that has Brandon Ayuk sent to the Washington Commanders. Yeah, send Jahan Dotson packing. Penn State anyhow. Go Terps. Not a big fan. Secretly, I only like Jahan Dotson because he's a Commander. If he wasn't a Commander, I would not be liking Jahan Dotson. But bring Brandon Ayuk to the nation's capital. Throw in a 4th or 5th round pick on top of Jahan Dotson. I'm all aboard that. So, what to make of it? It's nothing. It's nothing until it's something. Because he has him on his phone while he's telling they don't want me back. They don't love me. They don't want me. That means absolutely nothing. But it is fun to think about.
Yeah. JT, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with Jorge. I don't think it means anything. These guys like to talk. And all season, everybody likes to make noise. Everybody gets out there. The Niners are like, we absolutely want Brian. He's like, they don't love me. It's just BS until I see something happen. It's just like JT. He'll never be a Colt. He wants traded. He's gone. He'll never be here again. He says he hates the city of Indy. He signs a contract, so good, loves the team, never wanted to go anywhere, always wanted to be a Colt for life. These are the things that happen. Just off-season guys talk smack and things happen, and it's social media. We've learned social media is not to be listened to as far as your truth statements. It's fun, it's entertaining, but until you see something official, I don't get too crazy behind those types of things.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly there. Like, we are in the days, like the dog days of summer, and everything that comes out of camp is a lie unless it's negative. If a coach is saying something negative about somebody, you probably should believe that. But you're always going to hear he's in the best shape of his life, that he's turning heads in camp, and that, like
in the three, you got to have third. You got to have the third. It's the threes.
Yeah. The third is that he is going to be doing something that he's never done before. We're going to expand the playbook. Speaking of expanding the playbook, there are reports that DK Metcalf will be now like moving around the formation a lot more instead of just playing on one side of the field. So there's that. And then as long as we're talking about cliches, Jaleel McLaughlin, he's turning heads in camp right now. So
turning heads.
Javonte needs to watch out. And, Najee, he's not participating in OTAs. He's holding in, because you hold out, you waste too much money. Do any of those news or nuggets make you guys worry a little bit, or it's just all camp talk?
I like the DK talk. I think DK Metcalf is one of the most disrespected wide receiver 1/2s in all of fantasy football. If anything, this is going to, in PPR formats, if they end up doing this, where he's moving around the formations and getting into the slot and exploiting those mismatches like a Devontae Adams in Green Bay. I can't even think about what this could mean for his fantasy output going forward. And especially with the reports that you hear of the new coach from the University of Washington is a very vertically minded, former offensive coordinator, now head coach, who likes to really get his wide receivers the ball down the field. Having your best weapon line up everywhere on the field in that type of environment just screams upside for DK.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not. Najee worries me just a hair. As a Steelers fan, worries me just a hair. I think Najee's in for a big year. I think they're going to use him a lot. I think some of the veteran guys and some of the guys on the Steelers, I think they look at it a little bit differently. I don't think they hold it against guys. They understand sometimes it's business. He didn't get his 5th year. I know he's looking for extension. I'm one of those guys. I'm hoping that means an extension as opposed to just a 1-year, 5th year. So not crazy. I'm not super worried yet. Jaleel McLaughlin's one that's really perplexed me a little bit here, is everyone's talking about him. And I'm like, he was like a nice little bonus last year, but is he really the man with all the guys they got there? It just seems really surprising. I feel like this is some master fantasy football, like social media attack is like, hey, let's like really figure out how to get his ADP really high and let's have everyone else's drop. It's like a secret society master plan of fantasy football to like get Jaleel just to go through the roof. Because I think he's going to be okay. I think he's a decent player, but man, is he better than Blake Watson, undrafted free agent from Memphis? I don't know. I like Blake Watson a lot. So, and then like you got Javonte there, you got Estime. I mean, this seems like it's going way too far. I think they're just people are trying to move this ADP up about 5 or 6 rounds at least.
See what happened with Sean Payton's children got him in the fantasy football, and it's like, all right, look, Dad, we need to overinflate somebody who you did not hear about at all last year heading into training camp, during training camp. When you first heard the name Jaleel McLaughlin, the same time we all did when Adam Schefter, the Saturday night before week 1, tweets out, oh, by the way, there's this, incoming rookie named Jaleel McLaughlin that Sean Payton's really into. And then everybody was like scrambling to their waiver wire before kickoff. I was like, let's get this guy. Does jack shit for you the entire year, right? Except for like maybe 1 or 2 touchdown games.
1 or 2 like flex play games where like if you were desperate and you threw him in there, you're like, oh, he got me something. He didn't win you a week, but he got you something.
Right. And then you go back and people are like looking at his advanced metrics and it's like, oh, he's so efficient. He's so this. If he was so good, how come it was Javonte Williams that was getting a majority of the snaps or rushing attempts, and Julian McLaughlin was getting not, an equal amount. You think Sean Payton looked at the numbers and was like, we're just going to ignore this super efficient running back. Like there's something there. And when you hear too much good stuff about somebody, I like some balance to my news. I like some good, some bad, and there's not enough bad being talked about him.
I try to look at the other side of this for the Broncos. I'm like, they're not talking at all about Marvin Mims. Is that a great thing? I kind of feel like it's a great thing. Like they're not talking about it at all. Does that mean he's going to be awesome? Since no one's mentioning him, I love it. I hope his ADP just keeps dropping because that Marvin Mims is the guy I want. I'll take him. I want to take the upside. If they're not talking about him, even better.
Okay. No, Drew, we have not gotten to Jelani Woods just yet.
He's coming down the pipe.
We're gonna like a special correspondence. We're just gonna tune in right to you just so you can tell us everything we need to know. But yeah, with Jaleel McLaughlin, until he has a catchphrase, like Urkel back in the day, did I do that? Jaleel White, for those people old enough who know what I'm talking about. TGIF.
Awesome. That's awesome.
That is the only time. What's that, Jorge?
Or he has like a law firm commercial, the McLaughlin Group. Now, that was a politics show back in the day on NBC, the McLaughlin Group, on Saturday morning.
That's awesome. All right, guys. So that's a little bit of the news and nuggets to whet that appetite for those like Jorge who are just chomping at the bit for more news. All right. So now we're going to move into the bread and butter of tonight's show. We're going to be talking about third-year players, their third year in the NFL in 2024 coming up, and they're drafted in the 2022 NFL draft. So before we get started, I'm just going to go through June of last year's ADP for the rookies per DLF. And these are where the rookies were slated out and how people were drafting in June of 2022, not last year, 2022. The 101, Breece Hall, Drake London, Kenneth Walker, Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, Jamison Williams, Chris Olave, Sky Moore, Christian Watson, James Cook, George Pickens, and rounding out the first round in June ADP of 2022 is Jorge's boy, Jahan Dotson. Dotson. That boy good.
Real good. He real good.
I'm glad you guys know what I'm talking about. All right, so guys, so we heard like that was pretty much the first round, how ADP was going in 2022. So we're going to talk about some of these guys. We'll start off, we'll go with like some of the higher draft picks from that round. And one guy that went there, I mean, he was drafted at he was in the 104 spot coming up. And we may not be drafting him very highly this year. Treylon Burks. JT, I'm going to ask you, how do you feel about Treylon Burks?
Treylon Burks is just wild. If you remember, at times during that summer, people were talking about, should Treylon Burks be 101 before he got drafted by the Titans? This is before the draft. So I should say spring or late winter, spring after the season, before the draft happened, the NFL draft. People were talking about Treylon Burks 101. Is he got that size? He got that speed. I was telling people from the beginning, I watched a decent amount of him in the SEC, and I was like, man, I like him, but he's not ready to roll. He's going to have to get on a team and be like, learn some stuff because like they just manufactured touches for him at Arkansas. And then he got the death curse that we all know is going to Tennessee Titans as a draft pick, as a wide receiver. And everyone's like, okay, maybe it will end up all right. Maybe he'll end up getting traded, go somewhere else. He'll be AJ Brown. Oh, I think those days are numbered. I don't know anyone that's still on the Treylon Burks train. I knew it was going to take at least 2 to 3 years for a breakout for him just because he was so raw. But that was seeing some actual improvement year to year. We've seen nothing. I mean, there's been nothing to show you like, man, he does this well, or he could do this, or if they just used him in a different way, I could see some really good value there. I mean, there's nothing. Has anyone seen a Treylon Burks highlight reel?
Nope.
Any
but I have
highlight reel, like at all of
NFL plays. I have.
Did
I
you
have.
see one? I think there's
I
like
did.
is there like 5 views on it? Like, I mean, it's
No, it got a lot of views on a Thursday night football game when somebody from the Steelers knocked him the hell out. That's his highlight. His highlight. His highlight is not actually making a positive play on the field. It's actually just having camera time for something that was horrible. And
he got crushed on that. That was brutal.
That's the most you've seen Treylon Burks on your TV screen for anything. And you go back to the NFL draft where the Eagles make the trade for AJ Brown, and then everybody's like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And then they're like, "Well, they got their guy. They got Treylon Burks. Let's draw some comparisons just to show you that Treylon Burks is going to be the next AJ Brown." And as they're going through like comparison by comparison, he's just as physical. No. He's just as fast. No. And they just keep going down the list, and it ends up with like, so what the hell did they do just there? What were they thinking?
I'm gonna tell you guys right now, though. Like, I feel you're being really harsh on Treylon Burks. And JT, I'm gonna answer your question. Yes, I have seen growth from year 1 to year 2 with Treylon Burks. Year 1, remember that he wasn't practicing OTAs, whatever, because he had asthma. He practiced last year until he got hurt. So, growth.
Again, if he was on another team, I still feel like there would be people going, okay, maybe he's gonna get that breakout. I just feel like on the Titans, people were just like, it's never gonna happen. Yeah. At this point, you're just waiting for him to get cut, and then he's gonna become someone else's, Braylon Edwards. Braylon Edwards was my guy for years and years. I couldn't even cut him. I was literally actively trading for him in leagues just because I was like, it's gonna hit. It's gonna hit. And it just finally I had to give up last year. There's gonna be a couple people out there that Treylon Burks is gonna be their Brian Edwards, where they're just like, I'm gonna hold him because he's got the talent, he's got the skill, he just needs to be on the right team to use him right. And then they're gonna be just as disappointed as I was when I thought Brian Edwards 4 times. This is the spot. He's gonna blow up here, and it never happened.
Well, and then now people have false hope because you have Callahan now coming over from Cincinnati. They're going to adopt a more pass-heavy offense. And the only complimentary thing you've heard him say all offseason is, well, we're going to see what he can do in special teams. I'm sure he could contribute with the team. He's a
Whenever
team
you're
player.
talking about your wide receivers playing special teams, that is a disaster.
Now, for those in Scottish Bowl, people are going to be like, oh my God, he's the second coming probably.
Yeah,
Watch.
but literally, I mean, unless you're AB or Deshaun Jackson punt returning because you're an absolute stud and you can win your team the game, like no one else is playing their star wide receivers on special teams. They're just not.
Yeah. Let me say this real quick. Sorry to keep interrupting, Chris. Has anybody ever come close to matching Antonio Brown's kicking of the punter, like karate kicking of the punter while returning the ball?
I saw a couple joke t-shirts of that made the other day, and I was like, oh my God, I might have to buy a couple of these. They were hilarious. They were like different versions of him kicking different people with the head on the Browns player. I was dying laughing. I was like, I probably shouldn't be laughing at these, but I'm like, these are pretty hilarious. It was like a bunch of different shirts of him like kicking like Trump, kicking Biden, kicking like everybody, like kicking actors and actresses. It was just like any random famous person. It was like him kicking them as their face on the guy. I was like, this is pretty ingenious. Like sometimes the internet does win. It is fantastically funny.
Dude, Eminem is back on the airwaves. We can say whatever the hell we want to now. It's all okay.
Absolutely.
All over again. Thank you, Slim Shady.
Pretty what? Yep. So yeah, Treylon Burks, I would say we love you here, but not seeming like you got a lot of love on this show. Hey, but people are probably going to still draft Josh Gordon this year. So there's a chance that Treylon Burks might be standing. We're moving on. So we're going to go from Treylon Burks, someone who, we could say he failed to fire off whatever. He didn't give us the return that we were expecting. And we're going to go to a running back now that, injury slowed him down like a year, but everybody's expecting him to be pretty big this year and actually challenge for that running back 1 position. We're going to the New York Football Jets, and we're going to be talking about Breece Hall. Jorge, how do you feel about Breece this year?
I mean, how can you not love him? How can you look what he did on such a bad team last year okay, coming off of an ACL injury, and now you have theoretically a better offense with Aaron Rodgers, hoping he still has it, which if there's one thing you can never doubt, at least in my experience, is Aaron Rodgers, when it comes to stepping on the football field, comes to play very well and take away all the antics outside of the football field. So, my only concern with Brees is why I don't have him as my number one rated running back is because for the short-term play, does Aaron Rodgers in the passing game take precedence over the running game? Do they need Brees Hall to be somebody who's like a almost every down back? Is there room for phasing him out a little bit on this offense with a competent quarterback? That remains to be seen. But even then, he gets work in the receiving game. I just don't know whether that they're going to be able to manufacture enough touches for him to have RB1 overall relevance.
Yeah, Justin, any thoughts on Brees?
I loved Brees Hall coming out. When he was at Iowa State, he was my guy. I mean, I loved him. I know people are down on running backs, so people don't like taking him in the first round. I was a little shocked that he fell as far as he did in the draft. I just loved him coming out of Iowa State. Now, we've seen what he can do. Now, we've had the injuries. We've had to recover from the injuries. So we've never seen a full, healthy, on a good team, what Brees Hall can do. Now, if I'm the Jets, I'm putting a lot more on Brees Hall and a lot less on Aaron Rodgers this year if I can. I know the thing is you want to come out and you want to throw the ball a ton, but you got a great defense. They've shown that. They stayed in games with a terrible offense. I want if Brees Hall is healthy, people forget he's still only 23. So the guy's young. He's not nearing that 28-year-old, 30-year-old threshold. He's 23. And he got better as the year went on last year. We saw that. He had a couple games early on, 13 carries, 28 yards, 10 carries, 23 yards, kind of working his way in. But again, people are piling up the line because they didn't have a QB. He really, even with the bad QB play, really kind of stepped it up near the end of the year. I think we're going to see a really good Brees Hall. I think you got to have him in your top 3, 4, 5 RBs in Dynasty. I think even a redraft, you can have him a little higher. For me, I've got him in redraft. I just think I think their offense is going to be better. I've got him as my RB3 in redraft. I've got CMC, JT, then him, then Bijan. If you're going long-term, I think he's still got to, if he's not your top 3, I don't know what to tell you. I think he's got to be in your top 3 Dynasty RBs with his team. He's just got a lot left in the tank. The injuries have slowed him down, but man, I still believe in Brees Hall.
I love it. Jorge, quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
Take all the time you need. It doesn't have to be quick.
All right.
You say that you're worried that Aaron Rodgers might air the offense out a little bit more and they pass the ball. Garrett Wilson is the unquestioned alpha there. Are you worried about anybody else, or you think Garrett's going to be the guy?
Am I worried about an oft injured Mike Williams? So Mike Williams?
Mike Williams.
Yeah, Mike Williams. Yeah, going up and catching a ridiculous pass and landing so awkwardly on his back, he's out for a few months. Am I worried about that? No. I may be. I honestly, to give you, and normally I don't put too much stock into rookie slot wide receivers. I'm kind of concerned if I'm, about Malachi Corley kind of taking some targets away from not to the point where I'm going to downgrade Garrett Wilson, but I think Malachi Corley could do something very special, more so than Mike Williams here, the former Charger heading to the Jets here. But this is Garrett Wilson. All the reports out of the camps have been Garrett Wilson is even better than last year. I mean, we all were insert expletive teased last year when it was training camp and it was like the Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson connection. Let's see this offense take off. And then as soon as Rodgers went down, man, you even heard the reports that Aaron Rodgers went to Garrett Wilson later on that evening on Monday night and said, sorry, kid. And it's sorry for all of us, all of the fantasy managers out there that were hoping to see that connection take off. So, or take flight as their hashtag is on Twitter. Yes, I'm all aboard Garrett Wilson this year. He should have a monster year.
I love it. And I just want to say, all of us weren't like on board hoping they take flight. I was glad. I'm just gonna be honest. We're honest here on Dynasty 365.
We are.
Yeah.
Harry, what's up?
Keep that jet in the hangar. So, all right. So we're gonna go from one wide receiver to another highly drafted wide receiver back in 2022. Drake London from the Atlanta Falcons.
Here you go, Drew. It's for you.
Drew. Drake London.
Yeah, Drew's the one. He was on to talk about Drake London. Woods. I was also going to say I just joined the Fantasy and Frames fantasy league. Jorge got me in there. I went through, looked through my team, and I was like, I looked through everybody else's team because immediately people were offering me trades. You're the new guy. Everyone wants to trade you. I was like, Drew might be the only person in any league that has more Colts players than I do. I was like looking through his lineup. I was like, oh my God. It's like, look how many Colts players Drew has. I was like, I didn't know Drew was a Colts fan because I was like, I know he's a Cardinals fan because I'm a Cardinals fan too. But I was like, man, this guy has a million Colts players. So I was like trying to look at it. I was like, he probably wants to give up a couple of these guys. So Drew, I got a trade working for you. I was looking at today. I told you I was going to take a look. I haven't sent it out yet, but I'm looking.
Collusion.
Drake London. I like Drake London. I don't know if I probably am one of the few people that are lower on him than almost everybody else. I still think he's good. I think he's solid. I think we're still really hoping and wishing for what we think is the ceiling with him. And we're kind of totally blaming it on QB play, which I think you can say, is a part of it right now. A full season of Kirk Cousins might change my mind. But until I see it, I'm a Garrett Wilson over Drake London guy personally. I would take Garrett Wilson over Drake London. But I do like London. I just said probably for dynasty purposes, I'm just a little lower on him than a few other people.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Jorge, any thoughts on Drake London? You're muted.
Damn it. Rookie mistake. Acquire him as quickly as possible. I think this offense, once Kirk Cousins gets into a rhythm, they're going to air it out. And you know what? When Kirk Cousins' time is done in Atlanta, however long that might be, we just got Michael Penix ready to go, who's going to air it out to Drake London. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. So Drake London is going to be a top 12 wide receiver, I think, every season pretty consistently for the next few years. I think even more so than Garrett Wilson, just because I trust the Garrett Wilson to Rodgers connection. How long does that last? We can't just say we can throw any quarterback back there, and Garrett Wilson's going to be a top 12 wide receiver. I think you can say that the way the Falcons have things lined up in terms of succession at the quarterback position, Drake London is in a better spot over the long term.
The only thing I like to say, and this is something I used to really be bad about dynasty wise, was projecting like, okay, where's this guy going to be? Oh, he's quarterbacks. Oh, he's not going to be great. Who says Garrett Wilson's going to be on the Jets in 2, 3, 4 years?
Ooh, that's good.
We all thought like AJ Brown. Oh, he's going to be on the Titans. I'm not taking him. And then all of a sudden he's on the Eagles, and you're like, yes. Now everyone's like, oh, I want him. Garrett Wilson can be somewhere else in a couple of years. Maybe he doesn't want to resign there. Maybe they can't find a QB after Rodgers, and he's like, I'm sick of this. I'm out, and he goes somewhere else. So I've learned to try to talk myself into the talent. Take the guy. Don't worry about the situation more than 2 years out, because once you get beyond 2 years, you really start to, especially in this day and age with the salary cap and everything the way it works. We see way more trades in the NFL now than we ever saw 10, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, you never saw people trading guys. It was super, super rare. And now you see people moving guys constantly, whether it's money or an upcoming contract, a Tyreek Hill deal. I mean, 20 years ago, the Chiefs are never trading Tyreek Hill. They're not getting rid of him. But they're like, hey, we got to sign Mahomes in a year or two. We can't pay both these guys. Hey, we got to stick with this guy, move him. We'll get some younger players. So I think those situations come up all the time. And there's a lot of young guys on the Jets. Now, I would think Wilson would be their number one target. But if he's pretty pissed about the QB situation and what's been going on, I could see him being just like, nah, not doing it. I'm moving on to someone else. So I always try to keep that in mind when I get a little too far ahead of myself, thinking, hey, this guy's going to get stuck with a terrible QB the next 5-10 years. His situation can totally change.
That's true. And I just want to say, everybody who's thinking that or projecting Wilson to be the lead wide receiver in New York this year, don't forget that Aaron Rodgers still has Alan Lazard on the team.
Yeah, how dare you forget about Lazard?
How dare you forget about Lazard? In his 600 yard season. But
Alan Lazard, I traded him a couple years in the league, and I was so pumped that somebody else wanted him. He was just like on a random team I had. I was like, oh, and somebody's like, oh, I'll trade you this and Alan Lazard. I was like, sold. I was like, I'll take anything. You just trade me Alan Lazard, get rid of Alan Lazard. Absolutely.
Auto smash. All right, guys. So those were the guys who were kind of at the top of that first round. So we're going into some of the later first round picks now. And Breece Hall, I remember it was like there's two running backs, Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, of the Seattle Seahawks. JT, how you feeling about Kenneth Walker?
I actually like Kenneth Walker. I've been on him since the beginning. I just thought he's a guy that his big plays. I know everybody's like, oh, he has some negatives. Maybe you can't pound the ball with him as much. He's definitely lower than Breece for me. I mean, Breece is way higher, but I think Kenneth Walker is a really nice buy price right now. He's solid. People aren't 100% sure what's going on with the Seahawks. They're like, are they all of a sudden, without Pete Carroll there, are they going to start throwing the ball a whole lot more? Pete Carroll was I want to run the ball. I'm drafting a running back in the first round every round. I don't care. That was him. And now with him gone, I think people are expected to change a lot. I actually think they air it out a little bit more, but I actually think that helps Kenneth Walker because he's not a grinder. Kenneth Walker is a big playback. Well, the teams that air it out, it helps the big playback because now everybody's not pie on the line. I never think he's going to be that 25 carry a game guy, but man, if he gets you 15 to 18 touches and he's the guy that can get you a 50-yard run in a game, a 35-yard run in a game with a touchdown, and he doesn't have terrible hands, he's not going to get a ton of passes, but I still like Kenneth Walker. If you were redrafting this draft, he's easily the number 2 RB still. And I still like him. I just think he's not getting a lot of buzz. Maybe now's the time. If you want to try to grab him, maybe now's the time.
All right. Jorge,
Yes,
KW3. What you think?
It is kind of perplexing. You go and you draft Kenneth Walker, and then the year later you draft Zach Charbonnet. Like, what exactly was the thought process here? So I think they have somewhat similar skill sets. At the same time, we saw when Kenneth Walker was injured, and I guess that's kind of maybe one of the concerns they might have had is bringing somebody who's a little bit more durable, aka younger, and doesn't have as much wear and tear. We saw Charbonnet get, the RB1 opportunities, and he didn't exactly look that efficient on the ground when given those opportunities. Volume really helped him out in terms of fantasy, which, volume is king in fantasy football. Yes, I acknowledge that. But if anything, I think Charbonnet, in his lack of efficiency, kind of helps to cement more Kenneth Walker into this offense. JT, you're absolutely right. He is a big explosive play, breakaway percentage running back on which should be a non-Pete Carroll high octane offense. I really believe in Seattle and the Pacific Northwest. So yeah, I'm loving Kenneth Walker. I think there's I'm trying to move him because I need to rebuild. Thanks to you guys telling me a couple weeks ago that my team sucked last week. I think it was so on the show. So I'm trying to get rid of Kenneth Walker as fast as I can because I think there's still value there.
I agree. I think there's still value there. A wide receiver taking a 107 in 2022. Chris Olave. I personally think he is better than Garrett Wilson, but no one else agrees with me in that sentiment. JT, tell me why I should be in on Chris Olave right now.
I think Wilson, obviously, because of the target share, the quarterback situation, I think people are up on him, but Olave is not much behind for me. I think they're very similar wide receivers. And honestly, I really think this is an Olave hate. I think it's Derek Carr hate. I really do. I think people just hate Derek Carr and they don't want to be aligned with anything that's aligned with Derek Carr. I think people are just nervous about what's going on there. I think if you switch quarterbacks, you put Derek Carr in New York, you take Aaron Rodgers, you put him in New Orleans, I think you have a totally different narrative. I think people are all over Olave because they're like, oh, Olave, Derek Carr, or, Olave with Rodgers, such an upgrade. He's going to feed him the ball. And then Garrett Wilson people are going to be like, oh, I love Wilson, but it's not I got to count on Derek Carr getting him the ball. And I think that's the big difference. So I want Olave. I'm going the opposite side of the Garrett Wilson thing. Like, I'm still getting Olave going. I don't think he's going to be in this situation forever. And he's still young. It's not like he's 28, 29, 30, where you're like, oh man, if I waited a couple more years, like he might be out of his prime. He's got plenty of years left, whether he stays on the Saints or whether the Saints figure out how to get another quarterback there at some point. I like Olave. I am totally not against Olave plus for a Garrett Wilson situation. I really am not. I think Olave's got the same type of skill set. Obviously, they both went to Ohio State together. You watch them there; they were really similar players. I mean, they looked a lot alike. If you just switched the jersey number, you wouldn't really notice much. I mean, they were both really, really good. So I really think the Olave hate is way more tied to Derek Carr than it is actually Olave. I think people love the talent. They're just not. They don't trust the guy getting him the ball.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. Jorge, you want to add anything to Chris Olave?
No, and here's the thing. Like, I still think you can get him without, in terms of drafting, in terms of pick value, relatively affordably without having to give up somebody that's like in the first round or high first round. I think there's an argument to be made that you maybe get him for a high second and a player. People who, first of all, this is a side tangent, and I apologize for throwing a tangent at you right now. Everybody who plays in Dynasty Fantasy Football that has a star player from an NFL team on your Dynasty Fantasy Football roster, not every player is worthy of a first-round pick. Get over that idea that I'm only accepting first-round picks for wide receiver ones, running back ones, so on and so forth. Get over it, or else you're never going to make deals. Just get over it right now.
Only 12 first-round picks in most leagues, and everybody thinks 4 guys on their team are worth first-rounders. It is crazy. I agree with Jorge there.
Yeah, I agree with what GT was saying about Chris Olave there.
Okay, all right, guys, and so then we had George Pickens and Jahan Dotson, rounding out that. But in addition to those guys, there were a bunch of guys that were completely off the radar in the 2022 drafts. So, Jorge, I'm going to come to you first. Is there any player that we haven't talked about already that you're excited about for 2024 that you weren't in 2022?
Ooh, that is I'm excited for Zamir White. I want to see what he does given the opportunities in Minnesota. Excuse me, not Minnesota, but in Las Vegas, because former Minnesota running back Alexander Mattison is the backup. I am not concerned at all about Alexander Mattison eating into any serious snap percentage that Zamir White's going to have. We saw him take over for Josh Jacobs last year and just completely ball out. The coaching staff for the most part is the same. Their philosophy is going to be the same. They didn't really upgrade the quarterback position. I understand they have Minshew Mania. Notice how I said they didn't really upgrade the quarterback. Like it's maybe a centimeter upgrade, millimeter. But that's as far as the upgrade of the quarterback position goes. So I think he's going to have another great year this year. Going to have a lot of opportunity, which is what you really care for these running backs. And so he's definitely one of the rare few bell cow backs that you can get now that you were getting at a very good discount back in 2022.
Yeah. JT, same question to you. Like, is there a player that you're excited about in 2024 that you might not have paid much attention to in 2022?
A guy I was paying attention to, but I thought was going to take some time to really develop, but I was willing to take a chance on draft, stash on my taxi if I had room. But a guy that is like so cheap right now is Jelani Woods of the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, he is so cheap. If you look at startup drafts right now, I mean, guy is so far down the ADP list. You have to search and search and search to find him. He is so far down there. A promising. I mean, this is a guy we forget, man. He was a high school quarterback. He's an absolute monster. 6'7", 270. Guy's a beast. Colts love their big tight ends. I think he's going to be a red zone target with AR at the QB position. I think he's going to open things up. Missed all last year with a hamstring injury. I mean, you can imagine. I've had a couple hamstring injuries, and I'm not 6'7", 270. I can't imagine having a bad hamstring being that size. So he missed all last year. I think he's in for a bounce back. This is year 3. This is usually when we see kind of those, like, not the tight ends that aren't drafted super high. This is when we start seeing those guys coming to their own, the guys that kind of make noise in the NFL. It takes usually about year 3 before you start seeing them hit. Every opportunity for Jelani Woods to hit, and he is so cheap right now. I had Dynasty leagues where he was on the waivers because people just dropped him last year once he was hurt out for the year. They're like, yeah, I'm out on him. He's a guy I'm picking up. I'm stashing. I know there's mouths to feed there. He is wonderful in best ball. I mean, in best ball, I love him because I think he's going to get some red zone targets. But he's a guy for where he's going. I mean, you can get him in tight end 20, 25 range right now in drafts. I too much upside to just ignore him. So he's a guy I'm definitely going after.
Love that. Jorge. So
Yes,
question for you.
Yeah.
Is there anybody like in 2024 or whatever that has, I don't know, let's say their ADP has skyrocketed from where it was in 2022. Is there anyone that you can think of?
Yes, it is. There's only one person. There's only one player whose ADP at the running back position. I can't speak for other positions, but specifically at the running back position, that their ADP has skyrocketed to parts unknown, from Death Valley to the unknown regions. If we're talking Star Wars, I'm throwing out a lot of references here people may or may not be getting, but if you do get them, kudos to you. I'm talking about Jaylen Warren, undrafted. In 2022, now is the RB, this as of June 24 right now, in Superflex formats, the RB 27. Like, you can't get better than that. Undrafted to RB 27 2 years. Unreal. Unfreaking believable.
Yeah, that is strong. Yeah,
I'm loving that. He was one of those guys, and because I'm a Steelers fan too, I was on Jaylen Warren as an undrafted free agent. I just felt like he had a chance to be in the mix on that team. So I picked him up in a ton of spots early. But, man, he's getting drafted really high. And I think I've talked about this before, but Jorge was kind of talking about, the metrics for Julian McLaughlin earlier. And people kind of talk about the metrics with Warren, how a lot of them are way better than Najee. And I think for him, I don't think he's a better running back than Najee personally. He's a different type of running back in the situations he's in. When he's in the game, he gets a lot of dump off passes. He gets plays where he's able to make big plays because of the situation. So I think his metrics are higher. He's definitely a guy. I have a ton of Najee and him on the same teams, and I have no problem playing both of them. And I think this year, with the new offensive coordinator, with Arthur Smith, I actually think both of them are going to be playable running backs. I really, really do. I think you're going to be able to play them both in week out because I think they're going to get enough touches.
I love it. All right, guys. So, like, some other players that weren't drafted too particularly high, but, they have some value right now. We're talking about running backs. So there's a lot of running backs because, you remember, it was the wide receiver draft, but there's a lot of running backs we're talking about now. Pierre Strong, Kyron Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, Tyler Algier. I would love him a lot more if he was playing in Pittsburgh right now. Brian Robinson, Jerome Ford, James Cook, Rashad White. Any of these running backs like really tickle your fancy right now? Jorge, come to you first.
Yeah, I am all, and this is not just me being a homer. I am all on board Brian Robinson this year. I think him and the coaching under running backs coach Anthony Lynn is going to help this running back situation here in the nation's capital. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. So if I can get him at a value, I'm trying to get all the Brian Robinson I can in Dynasty because I think we're about to see a huge turn in terms of an upward trajectory. Let's not forget, this is like last year was his first full year post getting shot in the buttocks, Forrest Gump style. Not Forrest Gump style, completely the opposite of Forrest Gump style. But needless to say, we saw some improvement there. We saw his improvement in the passing game, as well as, it wasn't just the Antonio Gibson show when it came to, pass catching running backs in Washington. We saw Brian Robinson have a lot of success in that as well. Isaiah Pacheco, Zamir White, I just went over Zamir White a little bit ago. Isaiah Pacheco, man, just stay healthy. This guy's going to be a problem for, a lot of players who do not have him for years to come, I believe. I think just being tied to the Mahomes offense, just his violent running style, the fact that they don't have any real competition behind him. And that's the thing. You look at all these running backs, you're just like, okay, who's in a good spot, like in a really good spot? Like, who does not have that other running back behind them chirping at them? Breece Hall, I don't think you have any situation there. Pacheco, not there. Brian Robinson, are you really thinking, Austin Eckler is going to be the guy to usurp him, two couple of years down the road? I don't. Kenneth Walker concerns me because of Charbonnet, Rashad White, that's the thing. That's the player right there, because you got Bucky Irving in the draft, which I don't want to spoil, Chris, your article that you put out there talking about Bucky Irving, which if you haven't already, go check it out over at fantasyinframes.com. There is an interesting point here, where we're talking about fantasy versus, football, real football. So I have opinions, but I want to plug, Chris, your opinions more by having people go over to the website and read your article. You're muted.
That was me trying to be like you earlier in the show.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
No, I appreciate that, Jorge. I appreciate that a lot. JT, real quick, you got anything to say on any of those guys?
I'll just jump in real quick. This was not a class I loved running back wise, and that's why I was on Jalen Warren as an undrafted free agent. I just really didn't like a lot of outside of. I loved Breece. I liked Kenny Walker. Obviously, two highly drafted guys. But really, when I looked at the rest of this class, I just didn't love the rest of this class at all. Now, some of these guys have kind of jumped up there. They played pretty well, especially last year. The real question is, a ton of these teams went out and drafted rookies this year at running back. So some of these guys who had, pretty decent years, they went out and got a guy fairly high in the draft for RB, 3rd, 4th round, some of them 5th round. Kyron Williams had that breakout. They went and got Blake Corum. Rashad White. They've got Bucky Irvin, like Jorge said. I still am not totally. I don't think Sean Tucker's dead. I still think Sean Tucker's still in the mix there as an undrafted free agent last year. So I'm worried about him. James Cook. They went out there and got Ray Davis, who I love. If anybody who listens to me knows, I talk glowingly about Ray Davis all the time. I really think he's going to be a very, very solid NFL player. I think he brings something completely different than what James Cook, brings. So that I think he cuts into his carries. I like Ford, but I just don't know Cleveland. They got all kinds of guys there. Is he going to be the bell cow? Algier, like you said, Chris, if he wasn't with Bijan Robinson, I'm like, I probably like him a whole lot more. But you're like, okay, where's he at? Pacheco, I think, is the best spot, like Jorge said, just because they didn't really go get anybody. He kind of seems like he's going to be the man, and he's on a good offense. So even if he's not necessarily better than some of these other guys, he's in a better situation. Zamir White, like Jorge said, is the one that really intrigues me. I kind of liked him coming out of college. I think a lot of people didn't take him because they're like, they got Josh Jacobs. And Josh Jacobs is really young. Like, he's never going to get a shot. Well, now he's going to get a shot. So I'm really interested in what Zamir White can do there. But just a really interesting class because just so many of these guys, even if they did have a good year last year, like I said, their team went out and drafted a running back in the 3rd or 4th round, which we've seen these days. That's like an old 1st or 2nd round running back at this point. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like their team just took somebody in the 7th round or like, yeah, maybe we'll take a flyer. So I'm worried about quite a few of these guys long term.
Okay. All right. And there we got it. We're talking about some of those third-year players drafted in the 2022 draft. And now we got a quick bonus where we're going to get into our Dynasty in Focus. And it's where we help you put, those blurry Dynasty questions. We get you right, and we get that in focus.
Dynasty eyesight out of whack? We'll get you on track. That's right. It's Dynasty in Focus.
All right, so we took to Twitter and we asked people to submit some of their questions and everything they might have with their dynasty. And we have, let's see if we can bring this up. We have a question from Tommy Blair, and he asked, "How do I avoid chasing trends in dynasty and get out in front of them?" Jorge,
you have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice your now for later, before everybody else does. If you are a contender and if you feel like you have the best team and you're going to lock up your title that year, then just stay pat. But if you have any doubt whatsoever that there is some weakness on your roster and you can get a better player either in a trade or with rookie draft capital, do it right then and there. And it's going to suck because you don't want to do it because you're just like, I'm so close. I'm in the playoffs. I'm in the hunt. I'm like, look, you want to get ahead? This is how you're going to do it. And this is, unfortunately, this is how it's going to happen. Otherwise, you're just going to get stuck in the weeds of everybody else who's trying to make trades and upgrade their roster too. So getting ahead of a trend is a very painful thing for dynasty managers to do.
That is true. That is true. And guys, with that is another episode of Dynasty 365 here on Fantasy and Frames. And another great show, guys. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me for an hour on Wednesday. I want to say a big thanks to everyone who submitted questions. We appreciate that. Also, a huge thanks to Justin Taylor, JT. If you're nasty, I want to thank you for coming on, dropping some knowledge on us. JT, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me here helping out anytime I can on any of the Fantasy and Frame shows. Me and Jorge usually hitting it up the Shoot the Gap on the late night show on Wednesdays. So if you're an IDP guy, jump on there with us doing that. If you're into IDP ranking stuff, obviously check out everything on Fantasy and Frames. But I do my rankings on DLF's website. So I have my rookie rankings and my top 150 on there. So if you're into that, check that out. I also do my show, The Stupid JT Brew. Do some stuff right now. I do a lot more gambling stuff when the season starts, college football and NFL. Jump on there. And then me and my buddy John McGlynn do the dynasty evaluation, always pulling people on, answer, dynasty questions, commission questions, all that good stuff. So I'm kind of all over the place, but hit me up on the X at JT Orange. That's usually where I kind of repost everything. So anything you're looking for from me, I always put on there.
I love it. I told you guys, he covers everything. He's a jack of all trades. Love that guy. All right. Thank you to everyone who watched on YouTube, or if you listen to us on your favorite podcast platforms. Follow us on Twitter. The boss man, he's at Jorge B. Edwards. JT, he just told you he's at JT Orange, and I'm at Dynasty Deviant. You can visit us at fantasyinframes.com, and you go to YouTube or wherever you consume your favorite podcast. And while you're there, please do us a favor, like, comment, subscribe, leave a review. Tell JT that you love his beard. He likes that. It makes him feel good.
That's true.
Also,
that's true.
See? Also, hit that bell so you're notified whenever new content drops. Also, be sure to follow all of our Fantasy and Frame shows, especially on Wednesdays. We're Dynasty 365, where we got you covered for your Dynasty needs. Fourth and Frames, they're coming on right after us for redraft content. And as JT already told you, him and Jorge got you covered for anything you need for that IDP content on Shoot the Gap. Also, tune in on Thursday for Fantasy Football Weekly and the Draft Show. I thank you all for hanging out with us tonight. Now let's go and three-peat in our dynasties. Let's get 3 championships in a row like the 90-93 Bulls. Good night, everybody.